Hello, YouTube. Finished another one. This one is called A Signal Victory, the Lake Erie Campaign, 1812 to 1813. And I finished it so quickly, since the last book, because it's only 188 pages, and I also pulled this book out of my pile of previously started books. I started this one maybe 6 weeks ago, and I read, I don't know, the first 30 pages or something. It's a pretty good book. I got some pages marked off here. The book kind of runs through the war along the Niagara River and the war along the Detroit River, and that's kind of the first 1/3 of the book. The middle of the book is the actual battle on Lake Erie, and then the last part of it kind of runs through the controversy. The British and the American squadrons were pretty evenly matched. They both kind of had the same problems, but the British was a little bit worse. There was even, they tried to put a different British guy in charge of the Lake Erie Squadron. Let's see if I can find his name here. Captain William Mulcaster, but he declined because the British guy on Lake Ontario, his name was Yeo, would not send trained naval personnel, and you just can't run a ship with anybody. So the British were kind of at a disadvantage there. And one of my things is first-hand accounts, and they did use a little bit of first-hand accounts here. I had to wait till page 85 to get one, but there is a first-hand account, and then there was a few more towards the end of the book. And I made another note on this one. Perry, the American hero, he was a little bit of a racist. Perry also had a problem with getting manpower, but they did send him people, and they even sent him some bona fide naval people. But they also sent him some black guys, and Perry complained about that. He complained about being sent blacks and boys. Yeah, this one here, Perry's also kind of a big baby. Chauncey was Perry's immediate superior, and Chauncey, Perry, writes to him complaining about supplies, blah, 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 and Perry tries to go over Chauncey's head, and he says, "I am under the disagreeable necessity of requesting a removal from this station. I cannot serve longer under an officer who has been so totally regardless of my feelings." So he's kind of a big baby. What I would think is a big baby anyway. Just do your job and shut up. The whole battle took place because basically it had to. The Americans had to gain control of the lakes, and the British were never going to increase the size of their fleet, and so they had to fight when they did, even though they knew they were kind of outgunned. Barclay was the name of the British guy that was in charge of their fleet, and he did everything he could to win this battle, and for a minute there it looked like he might, but one of the reasons Barclay chose to fight was because his supply issues were never going to get any better. They had already told him that, that's what you got, deal with it. Perry's flagship was the Lawrence. The British flagship was the Detroit. The British had built the thing in like less than a year, really. The Detroit was on its maiden voyage when they had this battle. And so Perry, who I had always grown up thinking that he said, don't give up the ship. He did not say, don't give up the ship. He had that sewn onto his flag. And the Lawrence, the name of his flagship, was named after Perry's good buddy, Captain James Lawrence, who was the commander of the Chesapeake. And the Chesapeake was defeated by the HMS Shannon. And while that battle was going on, Lawrence was supposedly has said, don't give up the ship. And it was a little bit ironic for Perry to have that sewed onto his flag because he did give up the ship. The Lawrence had to strike its colors. It was pretty much battered into submission. Maybe the last 1/3 of the book goes into this controversy between Perry and Elliot, and I don't know, it didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. These guys made it a bigger deal than it really needed to be. Elliot at one point actually challenges Perry to a duel, and Perry declines. Neither one of them, they both did what they had to do. Perry, and I've run into this before reading military history, or Elliot, sticks to his orders, and he probably shouldn't have. He probably should have stepped around one of the boats that was in front of him and helped out the Lawrence. Anyways, one more thing about this is when you read military history, or any history for that matter, authors are they're going to reference things. And while you're reading it and they reference it, and sometimes they reference it again and again, you're in a bad position if you don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so I discovered that I didn't know a hell of a lot about the War of 1812, so I've got 4 or 5 books under my belt now regarding the War of 1812. And it's even worse that I don't know anything about it because this all took place like in my backyard. I've swam in Lake Erie. People go partying in Put-in Bay. It all took place right here. This place was a wilderness. It's only 200 years ago. Reading about Fort Detroit, you drive around Detroit and you drive down Springwells Avenue. You never think about that name, but Springwells was literally a spring well. That's where they got their water from. And now it's just a giant city, and back then it was just a little stockade. But that's it. I'm going to close with that. Thank you.